Is now a political analyst and research fellow at the University of the Free State. Dr Cloete, good afternoon to you. Really do appreciate the time. On the face of it, all of the plans announced today around growing the economy make sense. The problem is, and I'm afraid to start with this, that the ANC has announced so many plans to grow the economy in the past.
Good day, Stephen. Good day also to your viewers. No, you are right. You know, if we should have a World Cup on policies, we would win without having to practice. You know, South Africans are really very good at talking, saying the right things, but when it comes to implementation, you know, that's our Achilles heel. And so that is our problem, you know, is that we seem not to get it over the line. And I think what the ANC sometimes forgets, and it is very difficult, I would imagine, for the ANC, that it is no longer in government alone. So even if the party says this is what government should do, the president still has to sell these plans, you know, to his other partners. Because South Africans are in agreement, we have to fight unemployment, poverty, and inequality. And that means an economy that works, not just for some, but for all South Africans.
Dr Cloete, I mean, some of what the president was talking about does make complete sense, to build on the reforms we've seen in the electricity industry, for example, to do something about the fact that our ferrochrome industry is really almost shut down just because of high electricity tariffs. But you need to, for example, build 14,000 kilometers of transmission lines for the electricity grid, and that's what the president said. But everywhere that you put up a transmission line, you need a right of way over that land. Somebody owns the land. You need a servitude there. I mean, some of this is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, no, governance is a complex process. You know, the people in the room in the ANC are probably not they're politicians. You need that willing administrators as well to work with the politicians to make sure. And then you need the private sector. I think private sector in South Africa are restless. They are accusing government of being too slow. There was lots of hope in the GNU that it would get us over the line faster and that you have a more pragmatic approach, because certainly that is what is needed, a pragmatic approach of all going into the same direction. One would also, you know, and we haven't seen that yet. The president, this is his last term, you know, one would expect more bolder leadership, specifically within the GNU. But we also have not seen that. And so if there's anything that is going to come from this, it is not words, but it is action that South Africans want.
There are also other difficult trade-offs. So, for example, if you're going to give preferential tariffs, which is what the president said today, for people who run smelters, so if you're going to create ferrochrome, you need a smelter. They use huge amounts of electricity. But the only way you can do that is to charge ordinary South Africans, so Dr Cloete, that's you and I and everybody else, more for electricity. I don't know how I feel about that trade-off. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think in all of us, it's the poor that suffer the most, you know, and so it's a chicken and egg sometimes, I think, when it comes to governance as well. And so these trade-offs in the long run, the idea is if you do these trade-offs, it will lower down the value chain. We will see these benefits. But it has been painstakingly very slow in terms of turning the tide, in terms of economic opportunities for those at the bottom of the pyramid.
I'm going to try and put my cynicism back in its box for a moment and just talk generally about the issue of the economy. What surely is good is that there is a concentration of the political mind on growing the economy. So, for example, talking about growing our trade partners. This is obviously a response to the Trump administration's trade tariffs. Talking about trying to create more intra-African trade, so trading with more people on our continent. All of that must make sense.
No, it does. I think that is something that we should have done a long time ago. I think no economy should hold another economy hostage. I am in full support of diversification, trading in Africa, trading toward the east as well, but diversifying it so that we are not at the mercy of America, you know. And I think if you look at the balance of trade, it's this. I don't think it's either or. It's making sure that we keep our position, our trade position, our economic position in the world as open as possible, so that when the stance of America comes, it does not have such a devastating blow to our economy and puts us into a spin.
The other thing that I found very interesting was the first point that the president made was that the ANC reaffirms its commitment to broad-based black economic empowerment. And it's been really interesting to see the pressure that BEE as a concept has come under in the last sort of year or so, and for two reasons really: the Trump administration in the US and the inclusion of the DA in the national coalition. This seems to me to be the ANC saying, we're not changing our policy on BEE.
I think the principle of black economic empowerment is correct. The majority of people are excluded from the economy. What we've seen is the application of broad-based black economic empowerment, that it's a small elite that have benefited through that. And so it's also not a punitive measure, but how do we use the economy to make sure that more South Africans are welcomed in? We cannot have this unsustained pattern where the minority controls the majority of the economy. And so the examples that we've seen over the last couple of years, it's in the application of it, and that is the problem. In principle, I have no problem with broad-based, and that word broad-based, we have seen economic empowerment of elites and not necessarily of youth-owned women, those vulnerable in society. We have not seen the trickle-down effect of broad-based black economic empowerment. And so how do we break this and improve it in terms of including more people into the economy?
Dr. Harlan Cloete, I really do appreciate the time, sir. Thank you. Political analyst and research fellow at the University of the Free State.